Ethan Williams was never a man who believed in fate. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, his family had struggled just to keep the lights on. His mother worked long hours at a local diner, while his father, a mechanic, spent most of his life fixing engines and patching up old cars. They were the kind of people who worked hard, never complained, and always hoped for a better tomorrow. But even as a child, Ethan knew the world was unfair. He didn't have the best clothes, the newest gadgets, or the opportunity to attend fancy schools. All he had were his dreams, his drive, and a belief that if he worked hard enough, he could change his destiny. From a young age, Ethan was obsessed with one thing: music. He wasn't a particularly gifted singer, nor did he play any instruments well. But there was something about the power of music that spoke to his soul. He would spend hours after school at the local library, listening to the great composers of the past: Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, and imagining himself one day creating something just as timeless. But the world around him was far less sympathetic to his dreams. His friends mocked him for dreaming big. His teachers told him to focus on realistic subjects, and his family, while supportive, didn't have the means to send him to a prestigious music school. Ethan's first real setback came when he was 16. He applied for a music scholarship at a renowned conservatory, pouring his heart and soul into the application. He practiced day and night, perfecting his composition, determined to prove to everyone that he could make it. But the letter that arrived in the mail wasn't what he had hoped for. It was a rejection letter, one among many in a pile of thanks, but no thanks responses. For days, Ethan was crushed. His entire sense of self-worth had been tied to that one opportunity, and without it, he felt like his dreams were over. His mother saw his pain and tried to comfort him, but Ethan was inconsolable. "I've worked my entire life for this, Mom," he said through tears. "And for what?" "For nothing." His mother looked at him with the same unyielding eyes she always had. "Don't you dare give up now, Ethan," she said. "You're stronger than that. You might not get what you want on your first try, or your second, or your 100th, but you can't stop. Never stop." Ethan didn't know it then, but that moment would shape his future in ways he could never have imagined. He could have given up. He could have turned away from his dreams and settled for a real job, like many others in his neighborhood. But his mother's words echoed in his mind, reminding him that failure wasn't final unless you chose to make it so. So he dusted himself off and decided to keep going. Ethan's mother, a woman of strength and resilience, had always believed in him. One afternoon, while she cooked dinner in their modest kitchen, she turned to him and said, "You'll get there, Ethan. Hard work, perseverance, those are the things that matter." Her words became his mantra, and he knew, deep down, that no matter how hard things got, he would keep pushing forward. For the next 5 years, Ethan worked harder than he ever had before. He took a day job as a janitor at a local theater, cleaning the hallways and sweeping the floors just to pay the bills. But every night, when the theater was closed, he would sit in the back, behind the stage, and practice his music. He would compose symphonies on a beat-up piano, his only audience the echo of his own dreams. But life, as it always does, threw more obstacles his way. His father fell ill, and the medical bills piled up. Ethan found himself juggling multiple jobs, sometimes working as a waiter, sometimes picking up overtime at the theater, just to make sure his father got the treatment he needed. It was exhausting, and the dream of being a composer seemed farther away than ever. One day, when Ethan was at his lowest point, he received an unexpected phone call. It was from a former teacher, Ms. Roberts, who had heard about his father's illness. She had kept in touch with Ethan over the years, even though he had dropped off her radar. Ms. Roberts had always seen something special in Ethan, and when she called, she had an offer that would change everything. "There's a composer's workshop in Paris," she told him. "I know it's last minute, and I know you're busy, but this could be your big break, Ethan. They're offering a full scholarship to one participant, and I've put your name forward." Ethan was stunned. He could hardly believe what he was hearing. Paris? A workshop with renowned composers? But how could he afford it? He didn't even have enough money to pay for his father's treatment, let alone fly across the world. "I can't," he said, defeated. "I don't have the money, Ms. Roberts. I don't even know if I'm good enough." Ms. Roberts' voice was calm but firm. "Ethan, your talent isn't about whether you have money or not. It's about your heart, your dedication. And you've shown me that time and time again. Don't let fear stop you now." For a moment, Ethan stood there, frozen. Then, with a deep breath, he made the decision. He would find a way to go. He didn't know how, but he couldn't let this opportunity slip through his fingers. He called in every favor he could, borrowed from friends, sold his guitar to raise money, and worked extra shifts at the theater. When the day came to board the flight to Paris, he had enough. Barely. But what mattered was that he was going. In Paris, Ethan poured everything he had into the workshop. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged. Surrounded by like-minded individuals, he learned, grew, and experimented with his music in ways he never thought possible. The mentors at the workshop recognized his raw talent, and after weeks of rigorous work, Ethan composed a piece that earned him the scholarship. More than that, it earned him recognition. 8. In Paris, Ethan poured everything he had into the workshop. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged. Surrounded by like-minded individuals, he learned, grew, and experimented with his music in ways he never thought possible. The mentors at the workshop recognized his raw talent, and after weeks of rigorous work, Ethan composed a piece that earned him the scholarship. More than that, it earned him recognition. Over the next few years, Ethan's music gained popularity. He composed scores for films, orchestras, and even commercials. His name became synonymous with originality and innovation. His childhood dream of becoming a renowned composer wasn't just a dream anymore, it was his reality. But through all the success, Ethan never forgot the lessons he had learned along the way. That failure isn't the end, that persistence is the true path to success, and that sometimes the greatest opportunities come from the most unexpected places. And as he sat in front of a grand piano at his sold-out concert in London, Ethan thought back to that moment in Brooklyn, when his world seemed to be crumbling. He smiled to himself, realizing that the journey, the struggles, the pain, the sacrifices had all been worth it. Success wasn't a destination, it was the journey itself. 10. Ethan bowing after a grand performance, the audience standing up in applause, with his face showing a mix of humility and pride. A final, wide-angle shot of the concert hall, the audience completely captivated by Ethan's music, showing his complete transformation from a struggling boy to a world-renowned composer.